Hello everybody and welcome back to OMB Reviews. I am the critic who is a cynic. Hope you're doing well, and today we'll be doing the box office breakdown for this past weekend, which saw another massive victory for Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, and why this victory is not only pushing this film almost to $400 million internationally and almost to $300 million domestically, but also well on its way, as I've been saying now for a few days, to $1 billion worldwide based off of the estimates which I can now officially make as far as my projections are concerned. Also, I will talk about what I was mentioning last night on the live stream for those that maybe missed it, as everyone and their mother was talking about, oh my goodness, did you see Doctor Strange drop Friday to Friday? 82%, that's the biggest drop ever, and this is terrible, this is bad. And I said, whoa, hold your horses. This is just the Friday numbers. Let's wait for the Saturday and Sunday. And also, most importantly, wait for those in the context of the international market as well. And we'll go ahead and look at those numbers and see why some people may have been tricked by that initial fool's gold, as I was mentioning last night, of that Friday drop. Before going any further, though, please make sure you smash that like button, loud that fire button over on Odyssey, and also make sure that you are subscribed to the channel with that bell notification on. That way you know every time a new video or live stream goes live on the channel. So, as you can see, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness is at $688 million worldwide. And I need to first start off, right off the bat to say, just because a film is making money or makes money does not make it a good film. I just want to put it out there. There's been several films that have made $1 billion that have not been the best films in the world. You all know my thoughts about Avatar, for instance, amongst so many others. But with all that being said, no one can deny the fact that Doctor Strange not only broke even a long time ago, as its break-even point was $500 million, but also that this film is well outpacing that of The Batman, which some had been comparing it to, and is therefore well on its way to being able to reach not just $1 billion number, but also past the $1 billion. And really the question for me is, how far past the $1 billion will this film actually go? Or will this film see a massive drop-off? Right now, we're not seeing that number as far as a massive drop-off is concerned worldwide with the actual weekend numbers in. Again, if you're going to focus on the 82% number, I got a whole other number that I'm going to point to you in just a second. But let's go ahead and look at these domestic numbers for all the films that came out this weekend first. So first off, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness made $61 million, which is a 67% drop. As I mentioned, the Saturday and Sunday numbers were able to make up for the massive Friday numbers. And what is the reasoning as to why those numbers are so different? Well, remember that most people want to see films like Doctor Strange or any Marvel film or any superhero film or any big budget blockbuster usually on the day in which it releases, which is that Thursday and Friday. Remember, there's the Thursday premieres that come out, and then, of course, that first Friday. A lot of it has to do with the hype. A lot of it has to do more so, I think, personally, with people who don't want anything to be spoiled for them. So they want to be the first ones in to get their first thoughts in there. And so when I saw that 82% number being floated around, tons of videos being made about it, I said, okay, this is actually to be expected. We've seen massive drops like this previously with other big budget films, with other Marvel films. It's not really all that surprising. Let's wait and see how the numbers actually pan out. And sure enough, the numbers came out just around what most people thought they were going to as far as the actual weekend number and drop-off were expected to be, just around in the 60s or so. And so Doctor Strange, 67% drop from the previous week, making another $61 million, putting it very close to $300 million just in the domestic marketplace, meaning this film is going to well outdo and outperform anything that they were able to put out last year, which I think says more about the films from last year than it does about certain scaredemics. The Bad Guys made $6.9 million in its fourth week of release, bringing that to $66.2 million domestically, getting very close to its break-even number with a 28% hold and only losing around 51 screens, meaning this film is doing well enough for Universal to want to hold it out in certain theaters for a certain amount of time longer. Sonic the Hedgehog 2 is starting to drop out of some theaters, but it's been out for 6 weeks now, and it continues to make $4.5 million, a 24% drop or 24% hold in this instance. And so that brings its total domestic up to $175.6 million, again, continuing to outdo that of the original. As far as new releases are concerned, Firestarter was the only real major new release that came out this weekend, and it also came out on Peacock simultaneously. And so many are going to, of course, wonder and speculate and say, well, how much did that actually eat into those numbers? And even though there might be a lot of people who are watching it on Peacock, that does not mean that had it not been on Peacock that those same people would have actually gone out to a theater to go see the film, which is why I always think bringing up the streaming numbers to try and excuse a film's performance, and we saw Disney do this a lot last year, we saw HBO Max do this a lot last year. I don't always think that it's the most genuine thing to do, because there's a lot of questions as to, okay, well, are those people already signed up for the platform? Did they sign up specifically for this movie? Did they sign up for this movie and other movies? All of those things need to be taken into account in order to actually get an understanding of those numbers and how to properly, I guess you could say, split the numbers up as such. But anyway, Firestarter made $3.8 million at over 3,000 screens. And even though the film's budget is very small, around $15 million or so, its break even is roughly around $30 million. And so whether the film's able to do that, it just doesn't seem very likely to me, especially with it, splitting its revenue, as it were, on the streaming service. So we'll of course wait and see what numbers they claim on the streaming service and what numbers they claim, in the future. But not looking too good, even for this remake that, again, no one asked for, as is typical of most remakes. Everything Everywhere All at Once, though, a fun little film. I highly recommend it, and have been mentioning this every single box office breakdown. From A24, has had the worst release schedule, in my personal opinion, but for some reason it's worked, and I think it's because of the film and not because of A24. A24, I think they just dropped the ball and botched the opening of this film, but whatever they have been able to mess up as far as the release, they've made up with the actual film itself by having the rights to the film, because this little engine that could is continuing to push ever further to not only being able to reach its own break-even point, but also really to do something that many films aren't able to do. This film had a 6% drop, and this film's been out for 8 weeks, and if after 8 weeks, the film not only had a 6% drop, but also it added 184 theaters. So not only is it adding theaters when after the last 2 weeks it's been subtracting them, which is the natural course of any film, but now it's even adding theaters. And that tells me that there are a lot of people who are liking this film, seeing it multiple times, telling people about it. And if I'm even just a small part of that, that makes me happy, because I think the film is very well done, very good, and also is so much better as far as how it handles a multiverse and explains a multiverse and the logic of the film versus that of the Multiverse of Madness, as Madness, I think, is much more appropriate for that Marvel film, whereas with this film, it is just a fun time and, again, a well-crafted film. Fantastic Beast, not so well-crafted, 43% drop this week, so once again, not the worst drop-off in the 5th week of its release, but it is starting to drop theaters, and when you look at the worldwide numbers, this film has pretty much halted. So we can look at this film probably losing around $50 million or so. Some might say that that's enough for it to be able to write off through other revenue streams for the movie and for the property and just for the Harry Potter, money that comes in every single year. Some might try and say, maybe Blu-ray and 4K sales. But to me, that number that it's getting and the projected losses for this film should be very concerning for Warner Brothers, because this was a cash cow once, and now it is no longer a cash cow. So that is going to be a very interesting thing to see as far as what the future of this franchise looks like, especially with such abysmal numbers that it's had. Lost City is also starting to lose out on theaters as well. 37% hold here, $1.7 million, but the surge it was seeing internationally has seemed to halted. The Northman, dropping to the number 8 spot, made another $1.7 million. And even though I myself was not the biggest fan of it, it was, again, still a film that a lot of people were excited about, a lot of people really liked. But as you can see, already in the 4th week of release, starting to lose out on some theaters. And because of its just massive, massive budget, not likely to make any of that money back anytime soon. Another film that I don't know much about because it's a small film that came out in under 1,000 screens. Family Camp, Roadside Attractions, $1.4 million in its opening weekend. And again, I don't really, I look at that and I think, no, thank you. So I probably won't have much coverage about it, and it's not available really enough theaters for me to talk much about it, unless it does something like Everything Everywhere All at Once, which I doubt, but you never know. Coming in the number 10 spot, though, Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent from Lionsgate, making another $1 million, 34% drop. Still losing out on some theaters, though, and unfortunately, it looks like the unbearable weight of the talent that is Nicolas Cage is not going to be enough for this film moving forward. Looking at the actual international numbers, as I mentioned, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, $688 million worldwide, which is a very impressive number, and again, well on the way to hitting $1 billion. Bad Guys at $165.5 million, very close to its break-even point. Sonic the Hedgehog 2 at the $355.2 million, which again is continuing to outperform that of the original release, which shows just how strong this film is doing, even though I have not really been a huge fan of either of those films. Firestarter the film that no one asked for as far as a remake is concerned, and just that poster already looks very cringe. It just doesn't look like a lot of effort was put into it. But anyway, $5.8 million is the worldwide numbers for that. Everything Everywhere All at Once, this little engine that could, which I recommend, $52.1 million worldwide is where this film currently stands. Fantastic Beasts right now at $376 million worldwide. The Lost City at $155 million. Northman at $58.1 million. And Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent at $23.4. So let's go ahead and look at some charts because we like charts here. So with the numbers for 5-star first, the newer film, because of the $12 million budget, it means that the break-even point is around $30 million, meaning that as of right now, it's $14 million in the red. And I don't think it's going to make that back from the box office. And so who knows whether that film's going to be able to do anything or not at all. But the big news, of course, is Doctor Strange. And so let's talk about these numbers here. With a week 2 number of $688 million, my projections, based off of historical trends, is that the film will make somewhere between $982 million to $1.3 billion for an average of around $1.1 billion. And so is this film going to hit $1 billion? It's very likely to do so, especially if the holds from week to week continue. Remember that these numbers here, the 70%, this means that based on the first 2 weeks of the release, that the first 2 weeks made up 70%. If that were true, if the first 2 weeks, which is the 688 number, if those did make up the first 2 weeks of its release, this is the number that it would end with. Or if the number is 60% of its release, this is the number that it would be leading up to. And for this one, I know, River, I know. They're very excited. They're very excited about these numbers. But if the number was somehow able to double what it's made already in the first 2 weeks of release, that would put it to $1.3 billion. And so again, these are the numbers as they currently stand. And that means that it's going to make a lot of money for Disney. And again, doesn't mean that I like the film. I'm just pointing out the numbers and the facts. Film is expected to make somewhere between $289.7 million and $525 million. So that's just net gain, net profit too. So this film could make $500 million in net profit, which is something I don't think anyone was expecting from Doctor Strange 2. And let's talk a little bit more about why the film is doing as well as it is and why some people were a little, I think, confused, or not necessarily confused, but maybe we're kind of tricked by that 82% drop that was being talked about. Remember, this is a chart that we've actually seen before. I've talked about this and brought this up on the channel a few times beforehand, and I was saying, okay, here's the opening weekend number, and that was the current box office. This was without any Thursday numbers, which is why these numbers aren't exact. But my projections were that internationally, again, these are all based on internationals, that if the movie were to have a 70% drop or a 60% drop, or what was also known as a 30% hold or a 40% hold, again, depending on how you look at it, would mean the film would make somewhere between $667 and $712 million. Well, guess what? The film had a 35% hold or a 65% drop internationally, which is what put it at its $688 million number, making an additional $238 million. And so these are the numbers that I said were the most important to look at. Obviously, you had the Friday numbers that everyone was talking about, just for the domestic drop, but it was ignoring, first off, the Saturday and Sunday numbers domestically, which again came out to be around, 67% drop from the previous week. They were also ignoring the international numbers, which came out around the same. So when you take all the numbers in together, so the international and domestic numbers, there was around a 65% drop, around 35% hold. And so if these numbers are able to pan out and able to hold to where they currently are, then it would be easy to see this film being able to continue these numbers. And of course, we'll keep on tracking this because this is something new that I've been doing and that I've been tracking is the weekend to weekend numbers and to see what kind of drop-offs they've had. And so I think that I'm going to start to do that because it's going to give, I think, better and keener insight into how to project films going forward. And it's very exciting because it's something new. And I always like finding out new things and learning new things. And this is just one of those things that I'm going to be able to play around with. But for anyone who's interested in some of the other numbers from some of the other films and their releases, still have nothing on memory as far as how much the film costs, and so it's just going to continue to be forgotten. Whereas The Northman is still at $85 million in the red. As I said, that budget is so gigantic, it's not going to make it back. Even The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, which didn't have the biggest budget in the world, still $30 million in the red. Bad Guys, getting very close, $5.6 million in the red, very likely to make its money back pretty soon. Fantastic Beast, currently $74 million in the red, and again, this film has just dropped off everywhere. And the film that is the little engine that could, $52.1 million for Everything Everywhere All at Once means that the film's right now at $6.2 million in the red. So there's actually a chance that the film, especially if it continues to make $2 to $3 to $4 million every weekend, there continues to be a chance, there continues to be a shot that this is going to be able to actually officially make its money back, and that is going to be quite impressive, especially for the release that it had. Sonic the Hedgehog, $78 million as far as net gain and profits are concerned. But those are the numbers. What are y'all's thoughts? Are you surprised that Doctor Strange 2 is doing as well as it is? Again, I'm personally not. I was tracking the numbers, looking at the numbers, and again, I've been tracking this stuff for a while, and so I know that when you get those Friday numbers, it might seem like something off the bat, but it might seem that it's a sign of things to come, but until you have the actual full weekend numbers, and especially the international numbers on a film like this, where an international release is such a huge deal, obviously that is a much bigger impact. But what are y'all's thoughts about this? Let me know in the comment section down below. If you like this video, smash that like button, love that fire button, and honestly, y'all all amazing and beautiful people. Hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and as always, God bless. Before going any further, I wanted to give a very, very huge special shout out to one of my Valkyries, one of my longtime supporters, Tina B, the Empress of the Universe. Thank you. Thank you so much for being a supporter and for being a mod on this channel. And now for a huge special shout out to all of my members who are at the Keeper of the Bifrost level and above on Patreon, Subscribestar, and Locals. So first on Patreon, Brandon, let's go Brandon, Christopher Bowman, Garrett Searles, Hymir Irie Hymason, Jacob from Holland, Jacob Juice, who you can check out on his Letterboxd. Jacob Juice is how you can find it. Jeffrey Toon, Joey Horn, Jonathan Carney, Laura, the Modern Major General, Story, Mad Mike Jackson, special shout out for him in a second, Mad Mitch Dunaway, Orange Hat Reviews, you can check out his channel, Orange Hat Reviews, Rosetta Allen, you can check out her channel as well, Stan Andrian, and Miss Martin Muses, who also has a YouTube channel, and a special shout out, as I mentioned, to Jacob Juice from Holland, again, letterboxd.com/Jacob Juice for more information about him, and a special shout out to my members over on Subscribestar, Matt 317, Storm Tracker, The R, Fast Reaction, Mr. Roy, J-Rod, the Beer Guru, and ZK-Man. Thank y'all very much for supporting on Subscribestar. And to two of the members who are supporting me over on Locals, who asked for special shout-outs. First off, Minnesota hockey fan. Let's go. Let's get a hockey player. And UAB, Mad Dog, Mike Jackson for the win. Thank you very much for supporting me, and also Robert Barnes on Locals as well. Anyway, if you want a special shout out, and Brett D90 for that matter, if you want a special shout out at the end of every single video, please check out that top link at the very top of the video description. It'll give you more information about the different tiers and what you get every single month. Thank you guys for your love, for your patience, for this month's shout out video as well. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and as always, God bless.